Welcome, Sports Talk with Big J, coming to you from Plainfield, Illinois. Talk about the NBA, just my opinion. Well, we had the All-Star weekend and a lot of commentary about that, some positive and negative. Give my view of the weekend. Of course, it started out Friday. I think it was the celebrity game, which is always entertaining, kind of funny to watch, especially some of the commentaries. And I liked Richard Jefferson coming out as a referee and then as a player, and jumping in the game, and a lot of that back and forth, and Giannis being the coach. And it's so funny, his experience seemed to suggest that he felt that he could be a real life coach, and it was just funny all the way around. Then you had the slam dunk, the 3-point skills challenge, and that was kind of interesting. Skills challenge. I think it was Utah ended up winning that. They had 3 teams competing, which I guess that made it a little more interesting rather than the way they used to do it with just set number of players, and whoever came out the top, was the winner. So they had teams competing against each other. So, I don't know. I'm kind of old school traditionalist, and I don't think you need to change things every year or all the time. Everybody's looking to change things. I don't know why. If it's just some people just get bored, or they think that's just a natural way or attitude is to, try to change, make changes, so-called improving things. And sometimes it's not really improving anything. So now everybody's talking about the slam dunk. You got the young kid from the G League that ended up winning, and kind of crediting him with saving the dunk competition, and what is it that made that dunk competition exciting? I don't know. It's almost like it depends on who's or what dunks are being done. So if you look at this year's versus last year's was considered really terrible. So people didn't really have high expectations of this year's slam dunk. So what was the difference? Well, I think you had a dunker that had creativity. I think that's really what makes it a dunk contest exciting, is the creativity of the dunkers. Now, this particular guy that won from the G League, to me, he did have a few more creative dunks. Now, also, it's always the case I think he was only like about 6'2". The shorter dunkers, just by the nature of them being smaller or shorter, are always more impressive than somebody that's 6'9", 6'10", or 6'11". I think about, of course, uh, Spud Webb winning the dunk contest, and what's the other short guy's name? I can't even remember his name, from the New York Knicks. I think he's won it like about 3 times. Uh, 5'9" player, but it just looks more impressive when someone is short, rising up in the air and they dunk. So, this G leaguer, to me, he just had more creative dunks. Some of the other dunks were really not that impressive. Now, I disagree with most people in terms of the impressiveness of jumping over somebody. I really I'm not a fan of props in a dunk contest. And, when he did the dunk with the two men, one on the other shoulders, and, he jumped over them. To me, that's not really impressive. I remember the year Blake Griffin, I think he might even won that. They jumping over cars and oh boy. I think, and this is just my opinion, the creativity has to come within the dunk itself. When Vince Carter was winning, I don't remember him doing any dunks that required a prop. But it was just the nature of his dunks and the creativity within the dunk itself is, what made it spectacular. And the other thing I note from this year's dunk contest versus last year, one thing about this year, McClung, I think is his name, he always completed his dunk on the first try. And I agree with, I think it might have been Shaq or somebody like that, is more impressed when a person finishes on the first try rather than just repeated attempts at the same dunk. And I seem to remember last year there were dunkers who kept missing on their first dunk and have to go do it again, and eventually you're kind of worn out from trying the same dunk. So whether that saved a dunk, I don't know whether it did. It depends, like I said, on who is dunking and the amount of creativity that they bring to the dunk. Now, there's still this controversy about, who's entering the dunk. None of the top players are entering into the dunk contest anymore. The superstars, avoid it, and they keep trying to compare, back in Jordan's era, where superstars competed, but now they don't. And so one of the strangest takes I've heard on that is, heard where Stephen A. Smith accuses LeBron James of ruining the dunk contest. So funny how LeBron gets so much hate, how they even bring him into this, because what his point was is that LeBron, by avoiding the dunk contest, gave license to other top players to avoid it. Stephen A. says, well, he's a leader and they're going to follow his lead and that sort of thing. And to me, that's such nonsense to blame LeBron because other players. If you look at the players that have not been in a dunk contest, Magic or Bird or, why would they pick on LeBron as far as him avoiding the dunk contest when there were other players that did not enter the dunk contest either? That's so weird to me how people pick and choose. It could be that LeBron doesn't see himself as that great of a dunker in terms of creativity. And that's really what, wins. So I really don't hold it against him that he never entered into the slam dunk contest because there are other top players that never entered the contest either. Now, if your attitude is that, he should have been in because he's a great dunker, that's your particular judgment and opinion. It may not be the case. And as we can see, there were, even in this year's, there were athletic people that had the reputation of being great dunkers, but they get into the actual slam dunk contest and they can't think of anything new or anything spectacular to do. It's all, like I said, it's all about creativity. And if you can't think of a dunk that's never been done before, why should you enter, the contest? You just do dunks that everybody has seen before. And again, that's why this young kid won in the G League. So I don't think players will enter now, especially the top players. Number one is there's no incentive for them to enter it. Now, the old heads like Stephen A. Smith believes in their mind that this has something to do with a person's ego. In other words, you want to enter the contest to show that you're the best in this competitive thing. Well, these young players nowadays don't feel the need to do that. Ja Morant doesn't feel he needs to get in a dunk contest to show that he's a great dunker. He doesn't have to prove that to anyone. So what's the point? It's just a new way of thinking. And that's one thing that always gets me about how we try to hold players to standards or thinking of in the past. They always say, this player never would have done that. So what? Bird would never team up with another star. Jordan or Matt would never team up. So what? It's really crazy. So you as a player are only supposed to do what your predecessors did. You're supposed to act the same way they did. You're supposed to do the same thing they did. You're supposed to think the same way they did, talk like them. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. These players are individuals. They don't have to do things like Jordan did. Just like Jordan didn't have to do the same thing that his predecessors. He could do and act a different way. They criticized Jordan, for example, of not being politically, vocal. Like Russell or Kareem or so what? Why does he have to be like them? So just like, to me, it's not fair to criticize Jordan for not being politically active because he did not want to or chose not to. It's not fair to expect LeBron James, for example, to do things the same way, talk like and act like Jordan. They're always talking about, oh, Jordan never would have said he was the greatest of all time, like LeBron. So, Jordan may not have said that, but I'm sure Jordan believes it. But the point is, just because Jordan would not say that in public doesn't mean that LeBron cannot answer a question truthfully. I mean, you say, oh, do you think you're the greatest of all time? Yeah, I feel like I am. What is the big deal? So I hear comments of, well, if you're great, you don't need to say it. Other people will say it. That's so silly, where people just make up rules as they go along. No, you can say it and other people can say it. I was reading a comment today where, they're arguing and saying that LeBron just always talks about how he's the greatest, nobody else does. And if you really look at the kind of press, LeBron was getting when he first came out of high school, all these accolades and characteristics used on LeBron, like calling him the king and the chosen one, he didn't make those up. He got those from somebody else called him that, and he, of course, embraced it, but he didn't make up those names for himself. Anyway, that's a whole different story. I don't even know how I got into that. I think we were talking about, the slam dunk and, how they're holding against the superstars for not participating. So anyway, next year, if they have contestants that are creative and, do exciting dunks, then it's going to be exciting. Because remember, what made this one exciting is just one person. Most of the dunks that the other guys did was nothing really spectacular. Apparently, that's why they didn't win. So they're talking about this guy saved the dunk contest only because of his creativity. So now then we get to the 3-point shootout, and I think that was won by Damian Lillard, and he came through. I think he won it on the last shot, in the final round. They had some good shooters in there. I'm surprised that Buddy Hield didn't do better. Tyrese, Get the guy's last name, but he did great in the second round. I think he scored the highest number of points in any round, 31, but couldn't repeat that in the final round. So, and Julius Randle, I don't even know what he was even doing in the contest. But I guess maybe during the regular season he's had a decent percentage, so I guess that's why they put him in there. And I think last year a big man did win, and so maybe that's why they wanted the big guy to compete also. But anyway, it was suspenseful because it came down to the last shot. So I think what makes the 3-point contest exciting is when someone needs a certain number of points and they have to come from behind, and that creates a lot of suspense into the whole thing. So then we get to the All-Star game itself. All-Star game. Now, they try to do something different as far as with the draft. Last year I think they had the draft in advance, and it kind of made a little TV special out of it. I think it was Kevin Durant and LeBron, and it was kind of interesting, funny. And so this year they tried to do something a little different. I don't know why they felt the need to try to change it. Here's this old idea, we got to keep changing, we got to keep moving. So anyway, they tried to make it so-called a playground concept where, they pick right before the game. So I really don't think that necessarily helped. But what they did, they tried to pick the reserves first. And that's, I think LeBron's first pick was Anthony Edwards, and I think Jason Tatum was the first pick by Giannis. Now, after they picked the reserves, then they, picked the starting five. Now, this is kind of controversial because the Joker was almost the last one picked, and people were thought that was kind of disrespectful. He's a two-time league MVP, and he's having another MVP year, and he's the odds-on favorite to win his third league MVP in a row, which hadn't been done since I guess Bird did it back in the 80s. But anyway, he was picked next to last. I think Lauri Markkanen from the Utah Jazz was picked last. They picked everybody except, the Joker so he ended up playing on LeBron's team. But I really don't like that whole. Think they should continue, go back to East versus West, create some conference pride into the competitive nature of the game. So looking at the game itself, it was, and I've heard a lot of negative comments about the game, and I tend to agree that the game was kind of boring because of the lack of competitiveness. You kept watching these players go up and down, and they're shooting threes or either going to the basket with no attempt to stop them. It was more like a exhibition rather than a game, and admit that it was kind of frustrating to watch. I don't know how the fans, because I mean, you heard a lot of oohs and ahs when somebody would hit a shot from the half court, and Damian Lillard was shooting from long distance. You heard the oohs from the crowd, but did the crowd really appreciate a non-competitive game? I don't know. Now, if you look at the end of the game where they have that, I forgot what they call that inning, where they have to reach a particular score. The first one to that score wins the game. And last year that created a lot of excitement, but this year it didn't seem to be as exciting. And you had players coming down in that last shot, and they were just firing up three-point shots, and it was almost like a trial and error. And they come down, they needed one basket to win, so they just come down and try to shoot half courts, kept missing, and then finally Damian Lillard made one after several misses. And, I had the nerve to say Dame time. He does it on his wrist. It was really kind of a boring thing, and I don't know what they can do to change that. And you could tell some of the players really don't take it seriously. I know people like, Luka and Joker, they just don't take that game seriously at all. You could tell a lot of players are not trying to put forth any kind of competitive effort. And that just may be the mentality of today's players. You may not be able to change that. They keep trying to think of ways, but I really don't know that there is a way to change that kind of mentality. And I don't think at the rate these players get paid today, that you can even do it through money. What's $50,000 to somebody that's, making $10-15 million a year? So you try to incentivize it that way, and I don't know. So we may have to suffer through these non-competitive games, on a regular basis. They try to make it as if the particular teams are playing for charity, and apparently that still didn't make it any more competitive. Players didn't like to compete. They tried to have, towards the end of the game, they had Jaylen Brown and Taysom, teammates going one-on-one against each other. That appears to be the only time any kind of defense was played. LeBron actually tried to block a shot and he ended up hurting one of his fingers on the rim. I think that's one of the reasons why they don't really place that much effort, because there's a lot of concern about injury and getting hurt. Nobody wants to get hurt on the All-Star game. And I think one of the differences between the old days and now, that with so many players being so athletic, if they really did amp up their efforts, it's more likely that someone could get hurt. So they're very leery of that in today's games. But anyway, I don't know. Still look forward to All-Star weekend, the All-Star game, even though it was kind of boring. So hopefully next year it'll be better. That's all I can say. So that's kind of my take on the All-Star weekend. Now, looking at the last phase of the NBA season, we know that the team's got 20-some games left. Lakers made some trades that I think have made them better. One of which to trade Westbrook, and I've just heard where Westbrook has signed on with the Clippers. Now, my kind of thoughts on that is, on the one hand, really don't care. But on the other hand, this thing called poetic justice, whatever that means, I would hate for the Lakers to end up playing the Clippers in the playoffs, and Westbrook got the best of the Lakers. Boy, I would hate to see that. And knowing the way poetic justice happens, I would not be surprised if that happened. All of a sudden, Westbrook starts to play good now that he's left the Lakers. Wouldn't that be something? I don't know. I would hate to see that. Can he help? I still think now that one of the differences between Westbrook on the Lakers versus on the Clippers do have shooting. So they don't necessarily need, Russ to be a shooter. Whereas on the Lakers, when Westbrook was there, them not having any shooters, Westbrook ended up a lot of times with open shots, but he never really could hit them on a consistent basis. So, his lack of shooting was more pronounced because the Lakers didn't have anybody else that could shoot either. So his non-shooting ability on the Clippers may not be detrimental because they have so many other shooters. So, but his ability to, play make and, get to the basket on occasion could be, a lot of help. The only thing about today's point guard position, point guards nowadays have to be able to score, have to be able to shoot, even though they're controlling the ball. The best point guards today have offensive capability. So that's part of the changes in today's game. So It's going to be interesting final phase of the season because a lot of teams I think got better. You got the Suns picking up Durant, Dallas picking up Kyrie, and I think that things are being, if all teams are healthy, those teams are very much in the contention. Of course, Denver is being at the top of the league. Going to be, a problem. And I think they've been winning even without Curry. So when he comes back, they'll be even more dangerous. In the East, it still looks like it's Boston and Milwaukee. I really don't see 76ers, going anywhere. But Boston and Milwaukee seem to be the cream of the crop, and I think Milwaukee, just because of the force that Giannis plays with, I would think that he would be favored, to me, even over Boston. So we will see. Now, last thing I wanted to touch on is this GOAT debate, and just to clarify, I am so sick of this GOAT debate. Every time I go on, Facebook or somewhere, there is a conversation about GOAT. They have this one Facebook page, diehard Chicago Bull fans, and they make some statement, and everybody on there spends all their comments trashing LeBron. And I'm really sick of it because what happens is people, they organize their criteria to determine a GOAT that favors their narrative. And it's really kind of interesting. And every now and then I'll look at a comment and I'll deem it to be so egregious that, comment on it. And I'm even going to stop doing that because you really can't change people's mind on this. There are people that just won't accept anybody other than Michael as GOAT. And I personally don't think there is anything as a GOAT, but there are a lot of great players, in the league, and it is to me hard to compare heirs. It's like they look at the scoring record, for example. Now people point to the fact that LeBron has 3-point shots, whereas Kareem didn't. So that's difference in the way the game is played. Now, I guess they did have 3 points at some point in Kareem's career, but he only made 1 3-point shot, whereas LeBron has made over, I don't know, it was 2,000 or so, something like that. Anyway, the fact is that the rules change, a different game. So to compare heirs, it's like if you look at somebody like in the 60s, Bob Cousy, did he excel in today's game? I would guess no. So, Michael played, 20 years ago. People have it in their mind, oh, if he played today, oh, he would score or average 50 points a year. So does that mean Kuzi, if he played in Jordan's era, that he would have scored more? Most people wouldn't say that. So why do you think Jordan would do better in today's game than he did in his own era? I think that today's game is so different with the pace and the fact that you have almost every player is athletic. The athleticism is off the chart, faster, stronger. Even the defensive rules in terms of playing zone versus man to man, makes a difference. Back in the 80s, playing with only man to man, I actually think it was easier to score than playing against zone defenses. So nobody talks about that. But I'm sick of the GOAT. One of the reasons why I'm sick of it is because they have to demean one player in order to solidify their own player. You can talk about the greatness of Michael Jordan having to demean LeBron. Of course, what I find myself doing in defending LeBron is demeaning one of my own favorite players, because Michael Jordan was my favorite player before LeBron. But because I'm so offended by they tried to disparage LeBron's career to support Jordan, end up doing the exact opposite. Saying negative things about Jordan, to before LeBron. But I'm officially out of the GOAT debate. Some people would argue that there is no debate. It's never been a debate. Jordan is so far ahead till it never was a debate. But the reality is it is a debate, because you have two sides now. Of course, most people take a poll, Jordan is going to win. So believe that the reality is that Jordan is, I wouldn't use the word greatest, I would use it as the most revered. I think he's the most revered basketball player of all time. And he's reached us a level that he's become mythology. And so when I say mythology, I mean so people start remembering things about him that probably never even happened. And also they make up positive attributes that, never happened. And his voice become mythical in nature and grossly exaggerated. When people talk about him winning 6-0, and they never talk about the other 9 years. But yet and still with LeBron, they don't talk about the other 19 years. They always talk about 2011. So in one case, the Jordan fans will ignore the bad years for Jordan and focus on the good years. But with LeBron, they ignore the good years and focus on the one bad year. Oh, it's so funny. I'm kind of done with the debate. I still go in and read the comments, but I'm gotten a lot better at letting the negative comments about LeBron, roll off my back and let it go, because I know how people think about it, and I know how people are locked in. It's like Stephen A. Smith saying there's nothing LeBron could ever do to supplant Jordan. So in his mind, Jordan is the one, and there's nothing to change that. Mythical. And I think I've said this before. It's like Babe Ruth, being a mythical baseball player, where he becomes the greatest. He hit 60 home runs in a year, which had never been done, and he's became the standard, for a baseball player. Was he the best baseball player? Probably not. Ali became the most revered boxer in history. But was he the best? Probably not. I don't think so. And I was a big fan of Ali when he was fighting. I was emotionally attached to Ali as I was to Jordan, in basketball. And here's how I know I was emotionally attached, because I would get nervous whenever they, played in tight games, or when Ali was in, major fights, and I could get to a point where I couldn't listen to the game or the fight. I remember when Jordan was in his final game in 1998, the game against Utah. It was on a Sunday. And I wanted the Bulls to win so bad. And it was too stressful for me to even watch the game. So I think I wouldn't even watch, the game till it was over. So there were a number of games that LeBron played in where I was the same way, that I couldn't even watch him. It was too stressful. And I remember having that same feeling when Ali fought Joe Frazier for the first time. It was just, I think that game was actually, I was listening to that game on the radio. Shows you how long ago that was. But it created a lot of stress. So anyway, so Jordan's reached that mythological status where there's so many myths surrounding him till people will never have him supplanted. He is locked in. And, part of it is created this brand, the Air Jordan brand that lives on and is really entrenched. And see how that's ever going to be supplanted. Really don't. So he's reached that mythical status, and I don't think he will ever be dislodged in the minds of people, because see, people will never be able to get to that status nowadays because of the social media, there's so many ways to tear a player down to keep him from getting to that status. You know, look what's going on now with Karl Malone. You know, he was honored, you know, being in Utah, you know, with the All-Star game being in Utah. So they honored him, had him participate in some of the activities. So now all of a sudden people are bringing up, you know, the fact that he, you know, had a kid with a 13-year-old, you know, when he was 20. So, you know, this kind of stuff, you know, going around will stop a person from gaining any traction in terms of, you know, being a hero anymore. So, you can imagine if Jordan had the kind of social media that we have today, maybe he never would have reached this mythological status because there've been so many people so quick to keep bringing up, you know, the gambling or, you know, the affairs or even the fact that, you know, he wouldn't be politically outspoken. You know, he'd get tore down for that kind of stuff in today's environment. So he probably never would have even reached this mythological status. So, given the climate nowadays and the social media and the way we communicate, I don't see how anybody will ever again be able to reach mythological status anymore. I think so. So that's my opinion. Stick it to it. So looking forward to the rest of the season. I think games start up again on Thursday. Uh, See what happens. See you next time. Just my opinion.